Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, young, old, male, female, in other words, the Y people. Welcome to the 102nd Annual General Meeting of the YMCA. And the theme for this weekend is becoming a charity of choice in shifting times. The theme that we will be working with tonight and tomorrow as we review the steps we have taken in this direction together over the past year, our successes and challenges, and the work that still remains to be done. With a special keynote address upcoming by a speaker best known for her work on efficiency and accountability, I promise to be quite concise in my remarks tonight. In other words, no more than 45 minutes. But I would like to take just a few moments to provide some context for our meeting this year and foreshadow what lies ahead. But before we begin, I would like first to welcome all of our 2014 AGM delegates from across the country, our board chairs, CEOs, young leaders, other staff and volunteers, as well as the special guests who will be joining us over the next couple of days. We are very happy to see you here in such large numbers and to welcome a record number of our young leaders from across Canada. In fact, 35 associations, a full 70%, have a young leader in their delegation. This marks an important, yes, indeed. This marks an important change in our governance and a significant step towards becoming the YMCA that we need. This year's meeting also marks a significant milestone for our federation, the midpoint of implementing Plan Y, our federation's strategic plan and our roadmap to becoming a charity of choice. Becoming a charity of choice is built on three major planks. One, strengthening our leadership and governance. Two, enhancing our impact, including our collaborative work in support of our brand and cause. And three, improving our association health and vitality. As co-owners of Plan Y, we have made significant progress in all three areas in the years since we began this process in Geneva Park. On the governance front, both nationally and internationally, we are constantly reminded of the growing importance of board oversight and fiduciary responsibility and of what can happen when a board fails to fulfill the role entrusted to it, the downside risks of a board not doing its job properly. The pressures to tighten up governance policies and procedures continue to gain momentum, and we expect tonight's speaker will bring this message home. Nowhere are these lessons more pertinent than within a federated charity, where governance issues dealt with at one level may have ramifications for the entire federation as the sum of its parts. Within the YMCA, we have taken a number of steps so far to enhance our governance through specific changes to our federation governance and bylaws, including a provision allowing 3 external directors, this is the last time you will hear external directors, to be nominated, and by engaging our young leaders in federation governance. Our young leaders met over the last few days for their 4th annual Young Leaders Forum, and we look forward to hearing from them tomorrow on the outcomes of those meetings. We have also begun to use our annual general meeting as a major opportunity to build relationships amongst volunteers, carving out time in the agenda for volunteers to focus on their important role within our federation in terms of mission, oversight, and risk management. We will continue this process tomorrow for the 3rd consecutive year in the forums that are scheduled after lunch. At the international level, we have also been active on the World Alliance Executive Committee. We will hear tomorrow from Patricia Pelton, and we will have a 68-member delegation from our Canadian Federation to represent us all at the upcoming World Council in Colorado. On the leadership front, we have been developing a strategy for YMCA leadership development over the past year, and I'm very happy to announce that we have now engaged the University of Ottawa's Telfer School of Management, the only truly bilingual university in Canada, to create a new leadership development program for the Y. Please note that tomorrow, delegates other than CEOs and directors will have an opportunity as part of the volunteer and staff forum to participate in a focus group led by the Telfer team. When we approved Plan Y, we also agreed to take up the important topic of brand and committed to exploring new collective initiatives to strengthen our impact within our communities while taking a seat at the table on issues of national importance in areas where the YMCA has a unique value proposition. At last year's AGM, we agreed to move into the second phase of our brand strategy implementation, which has seen strong take-up across the Federation. This year, we also began work on our cause strategy, about which you will be hearing much more as part of Saturday's program, holding a successful cause camp in February in which over 100 staff participated. We have also put our brand into action by stepping up our engagement on a number of important issues for our country, focusing on key areas highlighted in Plan Y as priorities for our collective efforts, physical activity, and healthy children, First Nations children and young adults, and access to education. This includes our efforts to build awareness at the national level of the need to prioritize First Nations education as a major health determinant, one that will change outcomes for future generations of First Nations young people and their communities. Our active leadership role in the youth-led 4 Hours movement, of which you will soon hear more, our work with the Air Miles for Social Change and the Active at School campaign, and last but not least, our Federation's work on the development of a major chronic disease prevention and management platform, starting with the diabetes prevention, which models groundbreaking approaches by the YMCA across North America and leverages the excellent work on chronic disease prevention and management already begun by a number of associations. Turning briefly to the third plank in becoming a charity of choice, that of strengthening the health and vitality of our associations, we have worked across the Federation on accreditation initiatives within the Imagine Canada Standards Program, put the YMCA Development Network in place, and are actively developing the association health and vitality system, still a work in progress. We have continued to work towards optimizing the use of resources through shared services and expertise, and worked collaboratively on developing our philanthropic capacity, as well as on enhancing our shared platform for technology and communications solutions. And we have turned our attention to the vital area of association and federation metrics. Our progress will be shared with all of you in a presentation tomorrow. While the annual general meeting is part of a continuum and serves as an important milestone in Plan Y implementation, it is also an event that stands on its own, an opportunity to take stock, celebrate our achievements, make key decisions, and move forward. Tomorrow we will do all of these things, and we will have much to celebrate. On Saturday's agenda, we have reports on major Federation initiatives, our work on Federation metrics, a report on Plan Y achievements to date, our progress in developing our cause strategy, about our important work on child protection, and, as mentioned previously, a report from our Young Leaders Forum. And we will celebrate an important new collaboration for our Federation. We will discuss the next steps in our change process, confirm Plan Y implementation objectives for 2014-2015, and vote on the motions being put forward as part of our business meeting. Now, before I turn the podium over to Scott, I would like to take this opportunity to recognize the hard work of my fellow members of the National Board over the past year, and to thank them for their vision, dedication, and support in this increasingly challenging role. Board members, as I introduce you, would you please stand and be recognized? And now this works in a class of 10-year-olds. Please save your applause to the end. Jim McGowan, Vice Chair. Where are you, Jim? You have to lead off by standing up. Brenda Flaherty, Craig Rowe, keep standing, please. Marilyn Capitani, Jennifer Babe, Caroline Baer, Evelyn Dean, Clark Hunter, Larry Carras, Joanne Malloy Webster, David Saad, Betty Lou Suter, Ron Stewardson, Wanda Wetterberg, Jennifer Wilson, Win Young. I would also like to, please keep standing, like to welcome the special guests who have joined us for this meeting. Will you also please stand? Alvin Wright, President, YMCA, YWCA of Gitlak Madamix, formerly New Ayanch. Patricia Pelton, Canada's representative on the World Alliance of YMCA Executive Committee. Dave Hall, Wise Men's and Wise Service Club Liaison. Paulette Senior, Chief Executive Officer, YWCA Canada. Colette Prévost, Incoming National Board Chair, YWCA Canada. Glenn Orsak, Director of Executive Programs at the Center for Executive Leadership, Telfer School of Management, University of Ottawa. Tom Rankin, Core Team Member, Telfer School of Management, University of Ottawa. Ingrid Richter, Project Lead, Telfer School of Management, University of Ottawa. Now you can applaud. This work can never be done by 1 or 2 or 10, but you saw all those that have been involved in accomplishing so much over the last 12 months. And finally, I would like to give my heartfelt thanks to each and every one of you here today for your hard work and engagement, and to ask that you please pass on our thanks to all of your volunteers and staff, without whom we would not be accomplishing so much. And we are accomplishing a lot. And now the other handsome fellow on the screen, Scott Haldane.
Thank you, Bahadur. First of all, before we really begin my remarks, I want to mention that we are live tweeting from this conference, and I've been asked to remind you that if you're interested in tweeting while you're here, our hashtag, and someone told me I had to do this when I say that. Our hashtag is YMCA AGM, and if you'd like to have a Twitter button, Kelly will be glad to provide that for you. Kelly, where are you? Right over there. So there's Kelly. Kelly, how's that? All right. We got the Twitter thing going. This is my upcoming board or performance goal, is to actually start tweeting this year. So look out. We are at a very important point in our development. We are at the midpoint of the implementation of Plan Y. This is a time for us to take stock, to look at what we've done over the last 2.5 years, to think about where we are now, what's changed, where we want to hold the course, and move forward over the next 2.5 years. So it's an important time. We have been learning together. This is one of the most important things about implementing the plan, is we're not doing exactly what we thought we were going to do when we when we put the plan together. We've been adapting as we go forward, and we've certainly been learning as we go. So Plan Y is about learning through implementation. I'm waiting for this slide to come up for me. There we go. So Plan Y, I just want to remind you, back in May of 2011, now 3 years ago, we approved the plan, and we said that National Council said that if we collectively invested our time and resources in Plan Y and basically the strategies that Plan Y captured, We would have a greater impact in our communities. We would accelerate the work and the impact of member associations locally, of our federation nationally, and indeed of the global YMCA. We would have a greater influence and attract new partners by being more present and raising our visibility on the national stage. We would attract and engage young people, the leaders of tomorrow, and frankly, from what I've seen in the Youth Forum, the leaders of today. We become a more trusted and valued charity and attract new resources to support our work. We'd be able to leverage and make use of scarce resources to make the resources we do have go further, and we'd be able to build the value of our brand as a key asset in the YMCA's work. All of those things we said, if we did more together, if we built this, this focus on greater collaboration among YMCAs and greater collaboration with strategic partners, we could make a significant difference. So we're at the midpoint now, and it's time to kind of take stock to see if we've moved things along in an important way. We have made, as you can see, we started with Plan Y, which the vision of which was the Canada we want and the YMCA we need. The important breakthrough, I think, for us was the Canada we want was not about the YMCA. It was actually about the country in which our YMCAs are located. We wanted to be part of a kind of an ideal vision of what this country can and should be. So we started our vision with that, and then we said, well, what's the YMCA we need to contribute to that vision? We said that the strategies we would implement in order to move towards that vision was to strengthen our impact, to extend our reach, to increase our capacity, and to build our brand. What we found is that we have made some good progress together. We've accomplished some significant things. We've encountered some challenges as well. But in that progress, we've learned together, and we know a lot more about many things that were just ideas when we started out. Because we've been working on this together. And we've adapted to emerging issues. There's a number of things that we're working on that you'll be hearing about today that weren't actually anticipated within Plan Y. In a broad sense they were, but the specific investment and the extent of the resources that we put towards them were not necessarily anticipated as we move forward with Plan Y. We also discovered that it's important for us to focus on what matters most. And these, we have actually identified 5 things that have become very evident as we've done this work together. We first of all realized that working on brand and cause has a catalytic effect on everything else we do, that the efforts that we've been making on treating our reputation as an asset and really consciously focusing on making investments in presenting ourselves in a way that reinforces our brand promise and making sure that people's experience reflects that promise, that has actually caused us to make a number of other changes and to recognize a number of other changes that needed to be made. So the work on brand and cause is in fact something that enables us to do a whole lot of other important things for our communities. The second piece is that it is becoming more challenging, as it's always been a challenge, but today an even greater challenge to ensure that our YMCAs are sustainable and to make sure that we're innovating, not only in terms of introducing new initiatives, but also in terms of innovations around the things that we've done in the past and just finding ways to do them even better. We have begun to think about the idea of sustainability in terms of impact, relevance, and sustainability, to look at both our financial health and our relevance as a charitable organization in Canada. But that has become more challenging, and we've recognized we need to be more proactive in making sure that all of us are not only sustainable, but in fact are thriving. A third area that we've determined that matters most is in fact the imperative of protecting children. We're one of the largest providers of programs and services for children, teens, and young adults. Almost 1 million children, teens, and young adults involved in the YMCA every year in Canada, and it is our responsibility to protect their well-being, their safety and their well-being. And we've recognized, I think, collectively that we could do a lot better in terms of ensuring that all of us are making our YMCAs the safest place in which young people can spend their time. And it's not an imperative because of a legal or or a liability question, a risk issue. We've really come, I think, to the perspective, and it's the right one, that this is all about our mission and our vision and who we are as an organization. So this is another one of the things that we've determined is absolutely important. We've focused on what it takes to be a charity of choice, and you're going to be hearing this evening, and I think as a theme throughout the weekend, that it is tougher to be a charity of choice. There are greater expectations on charitable organizations than there has ever been before, on both our volunteers who are providing strong governance and also on management who are making sure that the implementation of the policies developed by their volunteers and the direction set by their volunteer boards are implemented in a very effective and efficient way. So it is tougher. It is much tougher than when I started my career to be a charity of choice in Canada. And this is an area that we feel that we need to work on together. And we've recognized the power of leadership. I think we've always known that, but we recognize even more that the leadership of volunteers and staff and the partnership between them, the use of knowledge, and in fact the great advantage that we have of sharing knowledge of all kinds across the system and finding ways to do that more effectively. And finally, the importance of data, real data, big data it's called now, but data that we can actually use to inform our decisions going forward. These are all things that we have learned together. And even more importantly, we've learned that in fact some of the way that we do things, the culture of the organization, the way that we interact with each other is equally important to the things that we do. So this idea of co-ownership, and just to reassure you, this doesn't mean that we are co-owning our buildings and our facilities and so on. Those are all on your own balance sheets and there's no change intended in that regard. But in fact, co-ownership in terms of our obligations, our responsibility to each other, and the importance of each YMCA caring deeply about what happens in another YMCA and providing an opportunity for us to support each other in a much more, I guess, committed way than perhaps we have in the past. We've always had in our culture a sense of sharing and a mutual obligation, but I think we're really recognizing that that goes even further into this idea of co-ownership of the YMCA in Canada. The need for focus, we had 39, I think, priorities within Plan Y. I'm going to talk in a moment about going down to 3 that really, really, really matter, but we're continuing to work on all of those. But the need for focus is really critical, and then the accountability for results. In a federation context, it's very difficult to account in an easy way for the work that we do, but we're going to share with you some of the work that the National Board has been doing to try to get a sense of how we can account to each other for the work we're doing. And that's critical as well. We've begun to, if we can go to the next slide, we've begun to use those learnings, that idea about what is most important, to focus in on some of the key deliverables in Plan Y that we'll be reporting out in detail. We simply can't track every priority that we're working on in a way that allows us to do the work. So we've chosen those that, in fact, by reporting out on these, you're going to get a sense of the overall delivery on the plan in its entirety. So we've narrowed the reports down to 8 important things, and I just want to highlight that some we've defined as being catalytic. In other words, the things that if we do this well, it will actually enable us, it'll allow us to do all the other things in much easier. So, and those ones we've said, every single member association, if this is going to work, this idea of Plan Y, of working together to achieve a bigger impact, if it's going to work, every Y has to be actively engaged in these top 3 things that we've called catalytic. One is brand and cause. We all have to think about brand being an asset. We all have to accept that we're going to present ourselves and communicate about ourselves, both the YMCA and the cause that we stand for, in a way that's consistent, has the same look and feel, but even more importantly, that we describe ourselves and our mission and our vision and the impact that we have on Canadians, we describe ourselves in similar ways. If we can do that, it can make a big difference. But we all have to agree that we're going to get involved in brand and cause. I'm happy to say that every YMCA in the country is actively involved on Cause Camp, or brandcamp.ca, which is our brand management system, and that means that we are a long way along the road of doing this properly. The exciting part is the cause strategy part, which we're going to be talking a lot about over the weekend. The second area is association health and vitality. The health of every single member association is critical to every other member association. So we've actually, on the management side, begun to think about what would it take, what behavior would have to change if we decided that no YMCA would be in crisis in the next 5 years. We always have about 10, sometimes 20% of Ys that are struggling in some way with crisis. What if we said that that wasn't acceptable anymore? That we were going to have no YMCA or YMCA-YWCA in crisis? What would that change? How would our behavior change? And we're starting to build some systems that allow us to get much more proactive, to begin to ask key questions at an earlier stage so that, in fact, we can start to work towards that pretty challenging goal. So it's called Association Health and Vitality, and we'll be talking about that quite a bit over the next couple of days. And there will be a focused discussion tomorrow afternoon in the forums with both board chairs and other volunteers and CEOs and other staff. And the final area that we all have to be involved in is child protection. We've all agreed on a set of standards. We all agreed that those standards represent making our YMCAs healthy safe places for our children, and we've all agreed that we will close the gap between where we are today and full compliance with those standards over the next very short period of time. So that's the third area where everybody's got to be involved. So 3 things out of all of Plan Y where every association has to have this right on the front of their radar. There are 3 others which not every Y will be involved in the developmental stages. There will be an opportunity for every Y to benefit from this, but we will be looking at certain YMCAs who will take leadership on these initiatives. And at the end of the day, you will decide whether, in fact, you want to take this up based on your own priorities and based on your own situation within your own association. So that includes program development and innovation. It includes leadership development and succession, and it includes the work that we're doing on technology. So these things are critical to our future success, but it doesn't require every YMCA to be actively engaged in the development of this. It will be done by a few YMCAs for the benefit of all of us, and at the end of the day, some Ys may opt into parts of this and some Ys may opt out of parts of this. That's part of being a federation. And then the final area are key enablers of change. These are things that we need to put in place to ensure that the system works well. That includes knowledge exchange and best practices and continuing to improve the ways in which we share the work that we do and share our successes with others so that they can replicate them when it makes sense. And finally, the YMCA Development Network, which is our system for making sure that all YMCAs are receiving the support that they need and are in a position to contribute to the support of other YMCAs through the structures that we put in place across the country. So this is just kind of a sense of where Plan Y has evolved from an implementation point of view, and you're going to be hearing much more about this tomorrow and as we move through the weekend. The last thing I wanted to say was just to situate the 2 keynote speakers and link them up a little bit, connect the dots, I suppose, with what we've been saying about Plan Y. Tonight we have Sheila Fraser. She'll be introduced shortly, but we thought who would be the right person to talk to us about the importance of governance, the importance of accountability and transparency. And obviously, Sheila, as the former Auditor General and one of the most trusted people in Canada, is someone that can really help us think through that important topic. And tomorrow we have David Sculthorpe, who is the President and CEO of the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Canada. They have had a very interesting process themselves of organizational change. It's their process. We're not asking David to share something that we think we should do, but we'll learn from their experience. And most importantly, they are looking at their own cause in very different ways and have actually identified the YMCA as an ideal partner, a strategic partner, to help them achieve what they're looking for. I want to remind us that when we did the work with Interbrand, and we got kind of a blinding flash of the obvious, I like to say, or we just kind of had a wake-up call because the YMCA as a charity didn't score very well relative to other charities when we did that work a few years ago. The charity that was at the top of the list and remains there today is the Heart and Stroke Foundation. So a partnership with Heart and Stroke and hearing from David Sculthorpe will really give us some insight to a charity that really is doing this work extremely well. So with that, I'd like to hand over the podium to Joanne Malloy-Webster, who will introduce tonight's keynote speaker. Joanne.